You've heard me talk for years about backyard orchard culture, about the benefits of keeping your fruit and nut trees small. That way you can have more trees in a smaller, sunny spot. But you don't believe me. Maybe you'll believe Ann Ralph. She's written a great book called Grow a Little Fruit Tree, Simple Pruning Techniques for Small Space, Easy Harvest Fruit Trees. Ann is based in Amador County. And Ann, your influences are much the same as mine. Ed Livo. Tell us how you came across Ed.
I was working at Scenic Nursery in Modesto, California. We had Jim Rogers was the owner of the nursery, and he insisted that we cut the trees short when they went out the door. And I knew that Jim was right about almost everything, but I didn't like doing it. And one day Ed came in to the nursery. He was our sales representative from Dave Wilson Nursery. He came into the nursery with an Arctic Glow nectarine that I could not forget. So I had to chop a little fruit tree for myself. Jim wouldn't let me out of the nursery without pruning the tree short. I saw what happened to the tree, and that's how I came to write the book.
Yeah, then let's talk about that, because I'm sure you've given public demonstrations, as I have during bare root planting season, where you stand in front of a crowd with a 6-foot stick, basically, a bare root fruit tree or nut tree, and you chop it off at the knee, and an audible gasp goes up from the crowd. And you know right away that a lot of people think you just killed the tree. But in reality, when you cut off that new bare root fruit tree to knee high, what are some of the things that happens to that tree as a result?
Well, the first and most important thing is that it lowers the scaffold and puts the tree in front of you, instead of, if you don't prune it, it's just going to grow higher, 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 higher. The second thing it does is it starts building strength into the tree that does not naturally exist without that prune. But it is emotionally difficult. But I would say if you can't do that prune, then you really are better off not growing a fruit tree.
As I'm fond of saying, any piece of fruit that's outside of your reach while you stand on the ground, it's for the birds. And it literally is for the birds. So it makes perfect sense to have your fruit trees no taller than you can reach in order to have a healthy tree. Because one of the benefits of having a 6 or 7 foot or even an 8-foot fruit tree, it's easy to net to keep the birds away come harvest time.
Well, and I talked, too, about how much fruit. People really overestimate the amount of fruit they actually use. You want to be growing fruit so that you have the amount of fruit that you can use, because too much fruit is a real nightmare scenario. It's all rotting on the ground.
Exactly. That fruit that's rotting, not only is it for the birds, but it might as well be for the worms as well.
That's right.
Now, speaking of worms, you're a big fan of using worm castings.
Yes, I am.
Tell us how you use worm castings.
What I do, I use them. They're a little more expensive than other mulches, so I use them like medicine. I put them anywhere where I anticipate a problem. I use them around apple trees for codling moth. They're wonderful around citrus for scale. And I can't tell you how this works. I believe that Organic Gardening Magazine is just starting to do some research, but the anecdotal evidence is really strong. My personal experience is great with this, but the fruit trees love them. They help keep the codling moth away, and they help anytime there's an insect problem. I put worm castings at the base of the tree, about a half an inch out to the drip line.
Now, you mentioned also, when you're talking about worm casting, something I didn't realize about the chitin effect may keep away certain insects.
That's right. Insects are made of chitin, and this is one stipulation. I'm not a scientist, but this is one thing that the earthworm growers have said, that the chitinase may be the ingredient that keeps the insects. Chitinase degrades chitin, and that may keep the insects away. I don't know why it works, but I've had really good experience with it.
Exactly. And you make that very clear in the book that this is all anecdotal evidence when it comes to worm castings.
Right. Right. But still, I would encourage, people with scale problems on their citrus, especially people with codling moth in their apples. That's not all they need to do, but certainly that would be a good thing to start with.
Tell us a little bit about your backyard orchard. What is the spacing of your fruit trees? What sort of fruit trees do you have in your yard?
Okay, I've got 6 trees, and they are, I think, probably about 8 feet apart. I've got something that looks like a mini orchard because I have a little bit of space. But you can certainly use this technique to grow things against the fence. But mine are. It's a young orchard, so they're not very big yet. They're not taller than I am, so they're about 6 feet tall. And I've got a Flavor Queen Pluot. I've got a French prune. I've got the Sierra Beauty apple. I just harvested those. I've got a Hudson Golden Gem apple. I've got a Mary Crest nectarine, and I've got a mystery peach that I got free from the nursery.
You point out in your book, and very rightly so, that especially in the world of stone fruits, nothing beats the taste of a homegrown stone fruit. And I bet you and I are both big fans of the Pluot, the plum apricot cross.
Oh, yes.
And, you tell people you got to try a Pluot. And what happens is they go to the grocery store and buy one of those Pluots and they go, it was okay. Well, you need to grow one at home.
That's right. That's so right. I was passing around Pluots to my neighbors. They'd never had them before, and that was a terrific experience for all of us.
Oh, their eyes light up. Yes, it's a big reaction.
So Flavor Queen is the one I've got. And they're not, it's not what I would call a beautiful fruit. It's just an orange, kind of a yellow-orange, plum-looking thing. But it's just tremendous.
And it's a fairly steady performer, too. Some Pluots might have on and off years, like the Flavor Supreme, one of my favorites. But the Flavor Queen, that seems to produce very well year after year.
Yeah, it's a little truck.
Yeah, it is. And I've got the Flavor Queen, the Flavor Supreme, and the Dapple Dandy, and I'm very happy with those 3.
Which one's your favorite?
Well, I really like the Flavor Supreme. That's usually the first one that matures, and I just love the sweet flavor of it. But it seems that with a lack of chilling hours or chilling units, the Flavor Supreme isn't performing as well as it did 10 years ago.
Right, and that's a situation that seems to be getting worse as the climate changes, and people need to be aware, I think maybe more aware of chill hours than we used to because of this. More
and more people are sort of changing the way they look at it. Instead of talking about chill hours, which are hours at 45 degrees or below, they're thinking of chill units, which takes into consideration the heat during the day, which can actually subtract from the chill hours at night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we've got another warm winter coming.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's end on a happy note here. And you briefly mentioned about trellising or espaliering. And for people with really small yards, that's a great way to go for fruit trees by basically stringing them along a wall or a fence. And you talk about that in your book, Grow a Little Fruit Tree. There
are a couple ways to do that. There's informal espalier, and that's just making your tree two-dimensional. You cut off everything that's growing forward. You can have a fruit tree that has one flat side and let it grow dimensionally into the yard if you want something that looks more like a tree. Or you can make these formal espaliers. The apples and pears do that very nicely. Stronger fruits, that's hard to do with apricots. Apricots or stone fruits respond better to an informal espalier.
And perhaps a tree that's known for its sprawling nature, the fig tree, can take well to espaliering, can't it?
Oh, yeah, they're beautiful.
Right.
Yeah, there's a beautiful picture in the book of an espalier fig.
Exactly, against a wall.
Yeah.
It looked very nice. The name of the book, again, is Grow a Little Fruit Tree. It's by Ann Ralph. It's available wherever books are sold. Ann Ralph, a pleasure talking with you about fruit trees this morning.
Same here. Thank you.